Hey everybody, Jeremy with Signs by Van. Today we've got a really cool video on how to finish CORAFOAM made by DUNA. We're going to walk you through the whole process from right off the CNC router into how we sand it down, how we prime it, and how we ultimately finish it. The really cool thing about the sign that we're doing today is we're actually going to be donating it to the County of Monterey. The County of Monterey just went through a really horrible series of local fires, and we want to send a big, huge shout out to all the firefighters that do so much for us on a daily basis. One of the greatest things about working with CORAFOAM HDU is that it breaks off in chips and it doesn't create a ton of dust. Because of the tight cell structure that CORAFOAM has, sanding, priming, and finish painting are a breeze.
CORAFOAM HDU is a rigid polyurethane foam. It's a closed cell product. It's used frequently as a wood replacement. Water cannot be absorbed into it, so we warranty it for life outdoors. CORAFOAM is unique because we have a special manufacturing technique called continuous manufacturing. It's a process that's similar to extrusion, where we essentially make a 200-yard long block of foam. And the benefit of doing it that way is it's going to have 100% consistency and density throughout the entire production run. It's also the strongest HDU on the market, which is going to help for when you're attaching fasteners or when it's in situations with inclement weather.
What I suggest is doing this in a very well-lit area. Actual natural light outside is some of the best lighting that you can have. It's amazing what you won't see with unnatural light as opposed to natural. And I'm gonna walk you guys through the tools that we use most of the time. And really, these 4 or 5 tools, if you have them, you can do most of your body work without any issues. Body work is probably 75 to 80% of the battle. Once you have that taken care of and mastered, the painting process is going to be a whole lot easier. I've got a couple areas here. I see 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 that need to get knocked down. The flat sander is going to take care of all of that. Another thing that's very common with CNC routing is onion skin, or onion peel is what they call it. It's a very, very, very thin, paper thin piece of CORAFOAM that's left when you're actually doing a plunge cut, and there's just a little tiny piece of onion skin that's left over. Literally could take your hand and peel it right off, and then again take your flat sander and knock it down to grade, and that basically takes care of those small issues. Now for bigger areas, you'll see I've got a lot of slag right here and a bunch of little high spots. Watch how fast I can take this down just with a hand sander. So the wonderful thing about this tool is that it actually bends, and for 99 cents you can't beat a tool that's this effective. And the reason why it's so effective is I can actually curve this tool to the radius of this this radius piece here. So it actually just bends and follows the contour, and I'm able to get a really clean finish within just a matter of 10 to 15 seconds of body work.
So every once in a while you're gonna run into an accident to where you're gonna have to go through and patch up a piece of the CORAFOAM. So I'm just gonna give you guys a quick little run on how to mix up a small little batch of Bondo. That way you get a really nice, good, smooth after effect where you have to do minimal sanding after. Put a simple amount of Bondo. You wanna go back and put about 2% hardener. I may have just put a little too much in there, but you wanna go through and chop it through. You never wanna just drag it through. You wanna make sure you chop it through and you get a good color change while you're doing it. If you have it still gray, you have not applied enough hardener. You want to get this good light blue. Get a nice coat and kind of just feather it back out. I'll come back with a nice wide knife. And just like that, give yourself a nice CORAFOAM patch letter. So after you have a nice, good, smooth patch, I would wait about 15 to 30 minutes. You can come by and you can touch the finger just to see how tacky it really is. But you want to wait till it's a good, firm, solid structure, and then you can come back with a good 180 and sand it down smoothly and softly, and come back with 220 and bring it right back to the 220, 320, right to that smoothness that you're looking for before you go back to primer.
Signs by Van likes to use a Matthews 6001 SP Undercoat. Typically this takes 2 coats. Sometimes, depending on the type of job that we're doing, we could go up to 3. We use a gravity-fed HVLP spray gun, and the tip is going to be at 2.0 or greater. That's what the manufacturer suggests. This is just a basic repeat of what we did already, but now we're doing it on primer. One thing you want to make sure that you don't do is go through the primer coating. You want to do enough to where, and that's why this primer is tinted in a dark gray to begin with, and then when you sand through it, you'll see it starts to lighten up. That'll also tell you where you have and have not sanded yet before. So one thing I kind of want to talk about here while I'm sanding is you're going to see, and if you've done this before or haven't done it before, you're going to notice that you're going to have areas in your primer that are dark gray and light gray. Your dark gray spots are your low spots in the primer. And what that tells you is you need to go a little bit lower so that everything is a consistent gray. So right here I have a perfectly consistent gray color. Right here, I've got a little bit of dark spots. Those dark spots are low. So I have to come back, hit it again. As soon as everything is that same color gray, and again, this works with all sorts of different primers. It's all pretty much the same thing. It's kind of bodywork 101. But you want it all the same color, and you want to go back and actually feel it and make sure that it's where it needs to be for the next process, which is painting. We hear that folks have an issue with pinholing. It's been our experience that we see those for the most part when we don't put a heavy-duty high-build primer on CORAFOAM before we do our final paint, whereas we'll just like spray a water base right on top of CORAFOAM. Well, one way that we've found out how to mitigate that issue is to spray and then inspect. Right after you spray your sign, those pinholes should show up right away. Take a little small back roller, a 2 to 3 inch roller, and back roll over your spray job. As we all know, a water-based paint takes about 20 minutes to dry, 25 minutes to dry if it's outside or you're baking it under ultraviolet light. Just go back over it again and spray over your roll marks in order to get that nice, smooth, clean finish. If you have the time and it works for your specific project, prime your sign. It's going to be able to protect it. You're going to be able to control your final finish a lot better. And it overall is just going to help the success of your final paint job. Matthews Undercoat system works incredibly well with CORAFOAM. The reason why it works so well, in my opinion, as opposed to other HDUs, is the fact that this is so dense and the cells are so tight. The quality is just there. You can feel it right off the bat.
Want to clean your gun out really thoroughly. You want to take the tip out. I use acetone or mineral spirits depending on whatever breaks it down best. I found that acetone actually breaks down Matthews almost instantly. Break down your gun and go through there with a Q-tip. Clean everything out because you don't want any other material or any other color inside of your gun because it's going to contaminate your next paint job or your next primer job. Put your gun back together, mix all your paints up, make sure it's 3 parts paint, 1 part catalyst, 1 part reducer, depending on your temperature. Make sure you have your air pressure set at a good 35 to 45 is a solid air pressure. Keep it a good 8-10 inches above and you kind of just let it flow. And again, you have to look back and go through and look in between those letters, inside the crevices, and make sure you're covering all those spots that are primered. And usually you want to spray with like a 1.3 to 1.5 tip, nice thin tip to where you get a good smooth coat on top of the sign. And it takes probably a good 1 nice coat and then a second thin coat, and then if you need to, a 3rd coat, but most of the time you're really not going to need that 3rd coat. 2 coats will get a good coverage and will seal the whole sign. You make sure you keep all those fingerprints off your sign because those oils will show up in your paint job and they will make your paint pull back. You can have a flawless background after you start with about a 180 grit, work to 220, And then after you get everything done, you spray your final coat. You're gonna wanna hit your letters with a 320 to a 400 grit sandpaper just on top of the letters or your border, just to give it that nice smooth texture. That way, whenever you are applying your final coat on top of those, they're nice and smooth, just like your background.
Anytime you're gonna be putting a light tack adhesive painter's tape on a paint job, let it cure up really well. Even if manufacturer says, it's 2.5 hours until working time when you can go ahead and start putting on your second, coat and tape. Give it a little bit longer than that just to make sure. But again, through trial and error, you're gonna find out what works best in your climate. Obviously, colder climates might take longer for the paint to dry, whereas warmer climates will have more moisture in the air. It really depends on where you're at in the United States or abroad. That's gonna dictate how your paint's gonna react, how your tape's gonna react, and everything in between. So always double check before you commit to spraying to make sure that the tape is perfectly flat on your surface. That'll prevent paint from going underneath the tape and ruining your perfect line. You always want to pull up your painter's tape away from the fresh paint job and towards your paint paper or your masking paper in order to make sure that you're not pulling up that edge or pulling up that new dry paint into your fresh new paint job.
So if you do try to dry these signs too fast, they will kringle and will turn into a real bad mess. Put a heat lamp 2-3 feet away, let it sit there and cure. Don't move it around, just let it be.
So we build hundreds and if not thousands of signs every year. And this project right here was a really cool one because we were able to say a thank you to the firefighters that risked their lives to save property and life here in Monterey County. So this one was very close to home for me because I spent 10 years being a firefighter myself, and just watching our team come together and do what they had to do to make sure that this was just an absolute home run. It made me feel great. So it's really good to hear feedback from all of my fellow firefighters. A lot of those guys put their lives on the line to save property and life here in Monterey County. It was about a 6 to 8 week battle that we had here locally with the fires, and those guys do what they have to do to protect us, and this is the least that we could do for them, is show a little bit of appreciation through a craft that we've honed for the last 38 years. When we originally started designing this sign, we knew that we wanted to have a lot of dimension, we knew we wanted to have texture, and we knew we wanted to have our lines broken up really well so that the sign would be very readable for highway traffic, because that's where it was actually going to be, is right off the highway. So it was important for us in the beginning to design something that was going to really pop, and I think we achieved that perfectly. The sign is actually in 3 pieces. You're going to see the red grill portion, the black, and all the white lettering on there is going to be one solid piece of CORAFOAM. And then we added on individual letters. So we recess routed into the main body, and then we added individual firefighter letters, which have a really cool inner channel and then a white outline in order to make those things really pop. And then the only other part that we added on was going to be that final high detail emblem on the top of the sign. You're looking at approximately about 12 inches in diameter and a lot of small detail. It's a good thing that CORAFOAM routes so well. So this was a one and done. It took about 45 minutes to route on our Morbidelli M100. It really was a breeze, and we feel like the detail of the emblem came through as we wanted it to. I just wanted to quickly summarize how much fun it is to be able to work with CORAFOAM. The stuff routes really well. It sands very easy. As far as priming and the whole finishing system that we implemented with the Matthews, it's just a dream to work with. If you guys have any questions about how we built out this sign, whether it's using CORAFOAM, routing, how we do our finish work, sanding, painting, any of those questions, give us a call at 831-663-2663 or go to our website, signsbyvan.com. Or last but not least, click this link below for our Instagram page and we'll walk you through. We have tons of examples. We also have a YouTube page that basically tells you how to build some of these signs from A to Z. Don't hesitate to call us. We're here to help.